Hi, in this unit we are going to talk about type conversions, variable type conversions, and some common string methods. I'll talk about using gets to get user input via the keyboard. Okay, let's start with some fundamental concepts. Now in Ruby, quotation mark 123 is not the same as number 123. Now this is a string. A string is a series of characters. 1 character, 2 character, 3 is not a number. You cannot perform addition or multiplication, okay, to this value. But this is a number. It's an integer. You can perform multiplication and anything mathematical. Okay, let me demonstrate this in interactive Ruby. All right. So if I store something like 123 into A, remember A stores a string now. It does not store an integer. If you try to perform a numeric operation like a division, you get an error saying undefined method / division for 123. It's a string. This is a string. You can't perform division on a string. Does that make sense? On the other hand, B is an integer. B stores an integer, and this is perfectly legitimate. 123 divided by 3 is 41. So I have to understand that although they look the same, they look similar, the quotation marks make a huge difference. A stores a string, B stores an integer. Alright, so once you have gotten that out of the way, let's take a look at these three very useful methods. I'm using the term methods now, just hold on to it. There will be a separate unit about methods. Okay, just these are methods. Dot to S, dot to F, and dot to I. This one to string, this one to float, this one to integer. Okay, let's check out how to use them. For example, A stores a string 123. Now, what if I do this? A dot to I, A dot to underscore I. Now, this expression returns 123 as an integer, and you can perform numeric operations on that integer. This in no way changes the value in A. Okay. Of course, I can store the answer in a new variable. In this case, answer stores an integer. So use this on a string, okay, or float to convert the expression to return an expression which is an integer. So what if A is a float? Let's check this out. Okay, let's say F is a float. F equals to 3.14. F dot to I removes the 0.14. This is not a rounding operation. So let's say if F is 3.99, F dot to I still returns 3. Okay, this is not a rounding operation. Basically converts F into, it basically returns a value F converted to integer without affecting F. Okay, F still stores 3.99 in this case. What about I've shown to I, I've shown to I. What about to F? Now let's check out to F. Basically, it converts something to a float. So A equals to 3.14 as a string. A dot to float returns 3.14. Let's say I is a number, 99. I dot to F returns 99.0. Now, this is a float. It's no longer an integer. Okay, let's check out to S. I'm trying to convert something to a string. So I is 99. I dot to S returns 99 as a string. This is useful if you want to perform string concatenation. For example, you want 999. Okay, all you have to do is, remember I stores 99. I dot to S plus 9. Okay, this expression returns 99 as a string, not an int. and now I'm performing string concatenation, two strings together. Right? The answer is a string. 999 as a string. Okay, these methods are going to be quite useful if you want to convert a variable into a different type to perform certain operations. Let's move on to this part here. Some common string methods. I'll show them. I'll show examples to be easier. So dot length is a useful method. Let's say if I have a string called pineapple. Okay, a dot length will give me the number of characters in a. In this case 9. Let's say if I have a space pineapple and a space, a dot length will be 11. Okay, because the spaces here are part of the string. What about down case? Dot down case. Let me give an example here. A dot A P P L E. Okay, a mixture of upper and lower cases. A dot down case returns, all the characters in lowercase. A dot up case returns this. Now both of these methods do not change the value stored in A. A still contains that the mismatch, the mixture of upper and lower case characters. If you want to change the value of A, you can do something like A equals to A dot uppercase, upcase. This will change the value of A. Basically what happens is this returns APPLE uppercase, and you're using the assignment operator to assign APPLE uppercase to A. So now A gets a new value stored inside it. Okay. Now I'm going to introduce what we call a destructive method. A destructive method has the exclamation mark. Okay, remember this does not change the value in A, right? But this does. Check this out. A has changed. So this is what we call a destructive method, a method which ends with an exclamation mark. The destructive method changes the value of A after it has changed all the characters to a lowercase in this case. These are what we call destructive methods. It's just a convenient way of writing A equals to A dot down case. It's just a convenient way of writing that. Just do A dot down case exclamation mark. Okay, so in this case it returns nil because it's already all in lowercase. Nothing to change. What about delete? What is in A? Apple. A dot delete P and L, or I put L and P. Same thing, this operation does not affect the value in A, but it returns a string with characters without L and without P. All the P's are removed, all the L's are removed. Now this delete method is case sensitive, so capital L is not the same as a lowercase l. Okay, let's move on to the last part, using puts and gets. Puts is easy. Puts basically prints out stuff to the screen. If you try to put a variable, it will print out the value. You try to put a string, you print out a string. You try to put a number, it prints out a number. Okay, it's for display purposes. What about gets? Gets is the useful one. Gets get user input from the keyboard. So I can do something like input equals to gets. So it's waiting for me to enter something. The keyboard, the cursor is blinking. Hello world. Okay, realize that input, which is a variable, has got a value stored in it now. This method waits for user input. So the user enters something, hits enter. Whatever the user has entered including the enter key. Enter is a new line, so it's represented by /n. So whatever the user has entered, including the enter key, is returned by this method call, and in this case is assigned to the variable input. So most people do not want this /n behind. You do not want the new line character behind. So you can do something like gets.chom to remove all the trailing spaces and new line characters. Let's try again. Strawberry fields. You see, input no longer has a /n behind. Okay, now let's put all this information together and write a very simple program. Now I've exited IRB here. I'm now in the command line or DOS. I'm going to use Notepad to write a program called test.rb. Okay, it asks me whether I want to create a new file. Yes. So when the program runs, I'm going to prompt the user for something. Enter your name. Okay, and it says, and it tries to get the user's name. Name equals to gets.chom, and it puts hello plus name. It's a simple program, 3 lines. Let me save it. Let me run it. Now this is the second way to run Ruby program, not using IRB. I just run it directly using Ruby file name. What's the file name? Test.rb. See. Let me trace this for you. Now the program has started running. It does this. It prints enter your name to the screen, and it comes to the second line. And now the program is stalling. Is waiting for the user to enter something. Okay, it's stalling at this highlighted part here. Gets.chom. So it waits for my name. I say Peter, and I hit enter. Now once I hit enter, this expression will be replaced by Peter as a string, and I assign Peter to the variable called name. A good name for the variable, right? A name of a person. And then I move on to the third line. Now this is string concatenation, hello plus a string variable Peter. So I'm getting hello space Peter, which I print out to the screen. And this is exactly a reflection of what is expected. Hello Peter. I've written a very simple program here which does 3 things in 3 statements. Prompts the user for something. Okay. It waits for user input and stores whatever the user has entered as a string into the variable called name, and then it prints out hello space the value stored in name. Okay, now let me change the program a bit so that I get to make use of one of the conversion methods. Let's assume that I want an age, I want a number. Okay, now this will cause a number, a string to be stored in age. Remember, this always returns a string. Even if you enter a number, the user enters a number, it will be stored as a string with double quotation marks here. So I do not want a string in age, I want a number, because I'm going to do something like next year you will be plus age plus 1. Okay, so I'm going to do this to int. So whatever the user enters as a string, the chom here removes the new line character behind. Okay, the highlighted part here returns a string which I want to convert to an integer. And this integer is then stored in age. Now age is a variable which stores an integer now. And then when I move to the third line, whatever the age value is, I add 1 to it. Age is not changed. The value stored in age is not changed. And then this won't work. I have to convert this to a string. Remember, when you do concatenation, both operands must be strings. So this right hand side, this right hand operand has to be a string. This is not a string, this is an integer. I'm converting it back to a string, and then I perform string concatenation. Let's try and run it safe. Okay. Ruby test.rb. It says enter your age. So I enter 18. It prints out next year you'll be 19. Running as expected. Now remember, if I do not put this, I'm going to save it. I'll get an error. It says on line 3 of test.rb, there's a problem with the plus operator. No implicit conversion of a fixed num integer into a string. This one is, they're trying to convert this hybrid part into a string, and it can't be done. So you have to manually convert it to a string. Tell the compiler that, hey, I know what I'm doing, and then I'm doing string concatenation here. Okay, this will work. Alright, this ends the chapter. This ends this unit.